Board.
Sounds brilliant.
They're just showing the video.
Oh no.
I think you're crazy. I agreed.
Like minds.
It's the quietest they've been all day, so they might start taking a minute and start asking you some questions.
Yep.
So I've just got you on the iPad. They can come up and ask you questions as they go, and then we'll see where the conversation leads, mate.
Okay, I'm just trying to set up. Oh yeah, that's all good. I've got it. Okay, hello people.
Hey.
How are ya? How you going today?
Yeah, good.
Is he thrashing you hard?
Yeah. He's on our form.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so sorry. I couldn't be there this weekend. It's just all a bit much with the situation I've got here with Mum and running across the North Island shortly with Neil. So it's all been a bit much. But I wanted to participate a little bit today and maybe answer a few questions. And maybe focus a little bit on some mental skills stuff, because Neil's been, drilling you all on form and technique and mobility and all of that good stuff. So for starters, let's just, let's throw me a few questions, and if you've got anything burning in your mind after watching the video clip you just watched, or anything that's relevant to your situation right now, go for it. Silence.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Cool, mate.
I've read a lot about when you hit that wall or when you get to that really tough point in a race, whether that's a half marathon or a marathon or much longer.
Yep.
What technique do you use? I've heard that if you can get through that, then you'll get strong again and you can carry on. So,
yeah,
what techniques do you use to get you through that sort of bonking kind of wall hitting point?
Well, there's two types. There's there's a number of ways that you actually hit the wall. I mean, there's the physical hitting the wall where you've got low blood sugars, for example, or your glycogen stores are really low. So to combat that type of thing, it's preparation and your making sure that your electrolytes are on target. I don't know if Neil's talked to you about race nutrition at all, but electrolytes are a really important thing to get in control, and there's a couple of products that I use all the time, which is in Hammer Nutrition's Endurolites.
Okay, yep.
And BCAAs is the other one. Neil can give you the details on those. That's just as far as keeping the right amount of sodium, potassium, magnesium, and all those sort of things, because they're responsible for the electrical signals in your body. So if you are hitting the wall, that might be one of the causes. The second one is your sugar levels, so your glycogen levels in your body. You've got about 2.5 hours worth of glycogen stored in your muscles, all right, and in your liver. Once you've burnt through that, you're aligned on what you're bringing in and your fat stores. The problem with burning with fat stores, and this is what happens when you're bonking, is that the burning fat for fuel is very inefficient, so you get very sluggish, you feel sick, you feel like someone's just pulled the plug on you. And it's a matter of getting those glycogen levels back up to a level where you're mixing your carbohydrate and your fat in order to burn. Because the body can't just rely on 100% your fat reserves, because it needs a bit of carbohydrate in the mix to make it work. The problem happens is when you're vomiting or you can't get anything through your digestive system, because your digestion is really having a tough time, because all the blood is in your muscles, right? You're running or you're cycling. This is especially important in running. It's not quite so bad in cycling, because you're at least sitting, so your skeletal frame is held and your digestion is a little bit better. But in running, where you're jiggling and everything, it's really hard to get that nutrition coming through once you start having problems. So very often in a race, if you do really bonk hard, the only thing you can do is stop for 10-15 minutes, try and calm the body down, try and get your blood pressure back to normal. Sometimes throwing up, as much as that sounds ridiculous, if you've got a really acidic tummy, and you've got real problems and you're not getting anything through, and there's something that's been sitting in there for the last 3 hours, sometimes getting rid of it and starting again is the only way forward. It's real good advice, eh? It's real, eh? And then if you can take a few minutes out of the race, and it's a very hard thing to do on these short races, but when you're doing ultra marathons, if you lose half an hour to rebalance, or you lose an hour, then that's okay. You just have to have that in your mindset that before you pull out, try that. Because a DNF is permanent, a slightly slower time isn't, And yes, you can come back. And in ultras, there's never an ultra marathon where I don't hit the wall at some stage. Well, very rarely. Even though I know how to, work it. But when you're out there for maybe 2 to 3 days, there's going to come a time where you're going to hit that wall. And you've got to slow down, and you've got to try and rebalance the body, get your blood pressure right, get your digestion working right, and then carry on. The worst thing you can do is pull out of the race because you've hit that low. It's not the end of the world. It feels like it. It's horrible, but you can get through it. And so that's one type of hitting the wall. The other one is the mental situation in the head. So what do you do, matey? What's your sport? Are you a triathlete or?
Triathlon, yeah. But mostly half Ironmans, but also ran a marathon recently where I sort of really felt like I'd hit the wall as well, and it was just really frustrating. Yeah, just because I didn't feel as though my race reflected my training.
Yep. And sometimes it doesn't, mate. You can control what you can control, and on the day things will be as they are. The preparation, and you can't take one performance as being the mark of where you're really at physically. So when you're hitting the wall, and you're in a really big long race, there's a couple of strategies that I use when my mind starts to go on me. And I'm talking sort of in ultra marathon territory here, but when you've got like an angel and a devil on your shoulder, and the angel's going, "Come on, you can keep going, you can do it," and this devil's going, "Why the fuck are you doing this? Why don't you just sit down? Who the hell cares? And, what's the point? And why are you doing this?" And all those sort of thoughts. And you can probably relate to this sort of battle going on in your head. And just sit down for 5 minutes. Just give it a break. No one's going to care. You've done amazing. You've already got this far. Look, it's really cool. I remember doing a documentary once on 100 Ks in the North Face in Australia, and I was following 6 people who were doing it for the first time, and there was one guy, and he got to the 45k mark, and I did a little interview with him on the camera, and he said, things aren't going well, and it's really, really tough, but at least I've reached 45k's, and that's an ultra marathon, and I'm happy with that. And then he toddled off, and I knew he was gone. He was going to be gone in the next 5k's because he'd lost it in his head. He'd given up already. He was bargaining. He was doing that bargaining thing. Or at least I've done this. I've achieved that much, So he did. He pulled out within the next couple of Ks, and that's happens, But it's preparing your mind for the battle to come. So when you go into a race, whether you're doing your first 5k or it's a big mammoth or it's an Ironman, you've got to be prepared for those times when those conversations are going to start hitting in your head. And you have to have a good answer. So you have to know why. Your why. You've got to know what your reason is for doing this. And then you've got to pull on those motivations. So for me, one of the questions I always asked myself when I was really in the shit in a race was, if my mother's life depended on it, would I give up? Or would I take the next step? And invariably, the question is, of course I'd bloody keep going. And if you can still keep going to save someone's life, you can actually still keep going. So it's little tricks like that. It's your mental, it's your perception. It's changing where you're looking out from. It's how much do you want this? And having that preparation in the mind, in the mindset before you go into battle or before you go into a race is actually really crucial. More crucial than the training the nutrition, anything else. If you've got the mindset, I'm going to walk over hot coals to get there, I'm going to go through whatever it takes to achieve this because I've set my mind to it, then you invariably you achieve it unless you break the leg on the way, and then, well, that's obvious. But another thing is that when I'm running, I keep my focus really close if I'm in desperate straits. So if I'm really, really in physical pain and I'm struggling and something's hurting and I'm really starting to doubt, I try not to think more than the next 100 metres or the next power pole or the next checkpoint. Because if I've got a mammoth distance still to go, if I start thinking in that frame of mind, looking too far ahead, once I'm in the shit, I can't cope with it. I have to be able to just go, right, okay, I'm going to try and get to that next power pole, or I'm going to get to the crew car 2k's down the road, and then I'm going to stop for 30 seconds and stretch, and that's my little reward. And so I use those sort of milestones and little things to pull me to the next point. And what often quite happens is by the time you get to that point, you've forgotten, and it's past. That moment has passed, and you've gotten through yet another difficult time. And it's just helped you. But if you lift your focus too far down the line, say you're in a 100k race and you're 50k in and you're only halfway and you're absolutely smashed and you're facing the night and it's dark and you're up in a mountain and you start thinking about the next 50k's and oh my God, it becomes too much. And you've got to think on, I'm going to get to the next 5k's. That's as far as you can ever think when you're doing that type of thing. So and disassociation. So when I'm running along a really long, boring place and don't want to be there, I start planning the renovations in my house or the business plan that I was meant to have done, and I occupy my mind and take it elsewhere. Or I go off and I swim with the whales. That's what I like to do. I haven't ever done that, but I imagine swimming with the whales and how beautiful it would be into that nice cool water, and I try and get myself into a happy place. And then there are other times when you have to, so that's called disassociation, right? And then there are other times when I use association, which is when I'm really concentrating on my own body and what's going on in my body, so that I'm checking in with myself. Because sometimes when you disassociate for too long, you can forget to drink, you forget to eat, you can, all of those important things. And typically when you're doing a long stuff, you've got to eat, sip, little tiny amounts and often is what helps you get through. So, by associating, I'm checking in, how's my blood sugars feeling, have I eaten in the last quarter of an hour, have I drunk, how much have I drunk, and just checking in with your body periodically. And just by refocusing on that, you start to forget the pain. It's all about trying to shut the pain and the suffering out for as long as you possibly can, so that you can keep going. Does that sort of answer that sort of question?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else?
I was going to ask, what motivates you? You can only do so many great things before this. What's the next great thing, and how do you motivate yourself to get to that?
So hello, disembodied voice. I can't see. Hey mate, how are you? Well, there have been times I'm just speaking now from my career where I've come through a big event and then I'm like back to back because I'm so on fire. And the danger with that is that you burn out and you blow up within a couple of years, And I remember the second year when I did, first year or second year I did that Death Valley race, because I went back the following year and did it again. And I disqualified for the 24-hour champs up in Auckland after, years of trying to represent New Zealand and get the silver fern. So I had to go over to England and a month after Death Valley and run a 24-hour race. And then 6 weeks after that, I ran through New Zealand for charity, which was the biggest project I've ever done. And the preparation and the project management and the sponsorship search and the website development and all that stuff was just massive. And I got to the end of the run through New Zealand after 42 days of fighting through there, and going through all sorts, and I was completely and utterly blown out. Like mentally I was, and I've never been as strong in my head since, because I really caused some massive post-traumatic stress, basically. Because within a 6-month period, I'd pushed my body to the absolute limit time and time again, and mentally as well. And it took 2 or 3 years to get my head around what I'd been through. And I still kept racing, because that was my mentality. I have to be doing the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And then my health started to suffer, and, you know, stress levels and depression and all of those sort of things. And, you know, through working with people like Neil and starting to understand physiology and starting to research, you know, why, and because I didn't understand. I'd look at people like Dean Canassis, for example. He's a fantastic guy, and, you know, I remember talking to him one day, and I said, how do you just keep going and going and going and doing another one and another one and another one? I feel like I'm totally and utterly burnt out. And he basically said, it doesn't happen to me. And I thought, well, that's bullshit. You're either superhuman, or I can't relate to that. Because 99% of us mere mortals will burn out if we push too hard. And so now I balance a couple of big events a year, 2 big events a year maximum. And this is what I, you know, Neil and I, when we're coaching, try to get our athletes to focus on 1 to 2 events a year, and to concentrate on longevity. So we're not just going and burning out. I've seen lots of ultramarathon runners, especially, they have one success and then they just go smash it, smash it, smash it. And then 6 months later, hello, everything's fallen to pieces. And I don't want that for me anymore. I don't want that for my athletes. So we've got a much more balanced approach. So for me now, it's all about balancing your nutrition, your mobility, your strength, your mindset, where you're concentrating on intense training and then relaxation. And the same in business. It's all about oscillation between your left and your right brain all the time. So your left brain is your discipline, your control, your programs, your goal setting, and your right brain is your creative, relaxed, happy place. Swinging between those two to give yourself balance is a really important thing. What's your goals, mate, and what's the underlying reason you asked that question?
Well, I kind of done a few ultras. I actually wanted to do the marathon to Stables in a couple of years.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
I don't know why. I figured it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of years to build up to it, but yeah, I'd just like to find something that I wonder if I can finish it, and then once you finish, find the next thing.
Yep, yeah, and just to tell you a little bit about Marathon des Sables, because I've done that twice, and that's amazing. You know, it's a life-changing experience, and it's a super well-organised race. It is a big race now, so that personal experience is a little bit less than, say, if you're doing a Racing the Planet one, because you're talking about 1,300, 1,400 runners. But when I did it, the first time I did the Marathon des Sables was the first race I'd ever done. I wasn't a runner before that. I hadn't even run a marathon. I just went out and did the Marathon des Sables. And having said that, I'd done lots of trekking. I'd done, you know, I'd crossed deserts and stuff and done stuff before. So I knew, I'd looked at the distances, I'd weighed it all up and thought, yeah, I reckon I can do this. And Marathon des Sables is doable. And it's, once you're there, you're so in the environment of it and so excited, because it's one of those amazing experiences where you've got people from all nations. It's a real United Nations feel, and I really highly recommend you sign up, mate. And there's a 3-year waiting list for most people, but Kiwis usually get in within within a year sometimes if they're lucky. So put your name down now. Get down now.
Just got to get the wife's buy-in.
Hey?
Just got to get the wife's buy-in.
Don't worry about that. Just sign up and then work it out.
Big forgiveness model.
Yeah, how to get divorced quickly.
Yeah.
But that's basically what I do. Don't wait until you're absolutely ready. You won't be ready. If you sign up to a goal, I mean, most races that I signed up for, I had no idea what I was getting in for, what it would take, or what it really meant to do it. But by signing up, it sets things in motion, and you start to work out along the way how you're going to do it. And if you don't have that emphasis of that goal and that registration's already in there, then you won't. It just speeds that whole process up. If you wait till you're the perfect athletic specimen, and you're ready and you're fit and you're strong, and then you sign up, that ain't going to happen. Just do it the other way around. Sign up and work it out along the way.
How did you prepare for the heat?
The best way for your body to prepare for the heat is to go over earlier. So you need 10 days. This is just speaking scientifically now. 9 to 10 days is what your body takes to go from, say, a midwinter New Zealand to the Sahara heat. So Death Valley, for example, Neil and I went over 10 days earlier. And within that period, we got over the jet lag. Then we spent like just half an hour out running, and then an hour, and then we slowly built it up day by day. And then by day 10 and race day, I was fully acclimatized. The body had actually adjusted to that. You can replicate certain things by going out and running with extra layers of clothing on. You can go and do a lot of saunas, but make sure you're replacing your electrolytes. Training in the sauna. All these things sound a bit silly, but they do help prepare your body for the heat. Don't go over and arrive one day and expect to be running the next day. That's the recipe for problems. So with Marathon des Sables, it's not that easy to organise, but they usually, you at least got 3 days from the time you land in, say, Marrakesh to the time you're out in the desert even, because they have to, how was it? I think we flew to Marrakesh, and then an internal flight, and then you were 3 days on the buses and out into the desert. And by the time you got there, you were acclimatised, pretty much. Yeah. So do it, mate. Marathon des Sables.
Yeah.
You got to do it. It's awesome.
That sounds good.
I did have another question, but is anyone else? Just a bit about nutrition, because I've been looking at my nutrition a lot. So we talked a little bit about nutrition during a race, and just to help with like the all or the bulking. But what's your nutrition like across the day? Are you a meat eater? Are you a vegetarian, vegan, paleo, gluten free, dairy free?
I'm a Maori, mate. I eat everything. No, I'm. I try to eat unprocessed foods. I eat meat. I was vegetarian for about 5 or 6 years, and I got really sick being vegetarian.
Oh, wow.
And that's partly because I didn't balance enough good stuff. I just cut meat out and didn't replace it with a heck of a lot.
Yes.
And I fight all the time with anemia, which a lot of women have problems with. And so meat for me is a really important part. I believe in having all the good fats, unprocessed food, cooking food from scratch, lots of fruit and vegetables, and then going to Ben Warren from Be Pure and sorting out what type of metabolic person you are, and then working trial and error. When you're racing, stay away from